Hey everyone, I am recording this with a failing audio mixer, so I apologize for the noise. If you would like to help make that go away, I am collecting donations for a new digital mixer to alleviate that problem. So you can find the links in the appropriate places. Okay, so the problem with Culver's coming to Hillsdale, I'm going to lay this out as clearly as I possibly can, and I'll give you the most poignant example to draw from. So let's start with population and access factors. As of 2020, the 2020 census, Hillsdale County is home to 45,746 people. And while that is an increase from prior decades, most of that growth has been in Somerset Township, which is quickly becoming part of exurban Jackson. And for those of you who are not familiar with that term, exurban describes development that isn't exactly suburban, but it is more dense than rural development. The entire rest of Hillsdale County actually lost population in the 2010 census, which I still contend overcounted Hillsdale City proper's population. That overcount seems to have been compensated for in the 2020 census, which shows a drop from 8,305 in 2010 to 8,036 in 2020. I think that realistically, we might still actually be under the 8,000 mark at this point. Now, don't laugh when I tell you this, but Hillsdale County actually counts as what the federal government calls a micropolitan statistical area. It's not large enough to be considered metropolitan, but it is recognized as a unique, unified socioeconomic region. Hillsdale County, while not entirely insular, is very much centered on itself, with the combination of both Hillsdale and Jonesville forming the officially designated urban core. For its part, Jonesville's population in the last census was 2,176, a drop from 2,258 in 2010, which was correctly counted as a drop from 2,337 in 2000. So in other words, even if Hillsdale did gain population in 2010, which again, I assure you that it didn't, the urban core still lost population overall in the past 30 years. The pair of cities went from 10,570 in 2000 to 10,563 in 2010 to 10,212 in 2020. Hillsdale County's urban core is shrinking, not growing. Now, the biggest challenge to Hillsdale's growth is a combination of infrastructure and culture. I'll begin with the infrastructure, and to be fair, it's not entirely our fault at the local level. The biggest problem that we face is that we are an out-of-the-way detour. We're surrounded by interstate highways on three sides outside the county, I-80 and 90 down in Ohio and Indiana, otherwise known as the Ohio Turnpike and the Indiana Toll Road, I-69 in Branch County, insert snicker here, and I-94 up in Jackson County. I hear you asking about the future I-73. Well, should Michigan ever actually decide to actually build it, it will come up from Toledo through Monroe County, westward into Lenawee County, around Adrian, and then head northwest to join US 127 north of Addison. It will never even actually enter Hillsdale County. Would we benefit from it? To a certain degree, but only in the same ways that we benefit from the other three interstates around us. We will never have an interstate highway in Hillsdale County. Just bottom line, we will never have an interstate spur route or an interstate loop route through Hillsdale County. The interstate highway system is a strategic network of freeways designed to move traffic through corridors that are economically impactful to the rest of the country. Hillsdale County is not considered economically impactful to the rest of the country. If we were, I-69 would have been routed through here instead of Coldwater. Same for I-94, which officially parallels the Old Sauk Trail. The trail is here, not in Jackson, but Jackson is bigger, so Jackson got I-94. Hillsdale County simply does not have the draw necessary to be included in the interstate highway system plan. So we can rule out an interstate ever coming through town. As such, there are many businesses and restaurants that readers of the Hillsdale Daily News recently clamored for, which simply will not open a location here. Applebee's, for one, which I've mentioned before, situates itself along major travel routes so as to take advantage of those passing through just as much as the locals. They have locations in Jackson along I-94, Marshall near the interchange of I-94 and I-69, between Fremont and Angola near the interchange of I-69 and the Indiana Toll Road, and Adrian along US 223, which, again, is slated to become I-73, possibly someday, maybe they hope. Most of the major national and regional restaurants and big box stores follow the same model. If it's not a major population center, and we're not, then it needs to have significant passing traffic, and we don't. So what else have we got? Well, that's where it starts getting into culture and where our lack of infrastructure is our fault. Hillsdale County, let's just start with a positive here, is a beautiful place. We are home to all sorts of natural wonders. We provide the headwaters of 5 of Michigan's most important rivers: the St. Joseph, the one that flows through South Bend and into Lake Michigan; the St. Joseph of the Maumee, the one that flows through Fort Wayne and into Lake Erie; the Grand River, Michigan's longest; the Kalamazoo River, yes, the city is named after it; and the Raisin, which, if you've never been to Blissfield, go. It is beautiful. It's named Blissfield for a reason. We have a couple separate chains of lakes and several smaller lakes throughout the county. We have the Lost Nation State Preserve, which is not only a nature sanctuary, but is home to some beautiful marshes, steep and sudden hills, and caves that were formed when the glacier stopped here and began receding, which, by the way, Syle Doty, I should say, famously hung out in one of those caves, and it's a popular attraction for locals to go see if they can find any treasure. We have mushroom festivals in Osseo. We have tip-up ice fishing tournaments on area lakes. We have trap shoots at the Hillsdale County Conservation Club. We have deer hunting galore all over the damn place, and our own section of the North Country Trail that can be hiked for hundreds of miles. So in short, Hillsdale County is a sportsman's paradise. It's also a great place for relaxed vacation homes built around our many lakeside communities. I sound like I'm doing a pitch for tourism industry or something. I won't drop any names, but there are some fairly well-known people who make their second home here. You might see them out and about in the community from time to time, and I'm not just talking about people affiliated with Hillsdale College either. Most of them aren't. In other words, Hillsdale could be a great place for someone to buy a cheap plot of land, build a relatively nice house, maybe make a living working from home by telecommuting. Except, well, see, that's just the problem. We don't have countywide broadband internet access. There are still parts of Hillsdale County relying on dial-up. There are still parts of Hillsdale County where the cable companies don't run lines and the phone companies can't get DSL service to reach that far from the exchange building. There are still parts of Hillsdale County where you will get zero cellular reception, despite the fact that we are not at all in the middle of nowhere when compared to far less populated areas of the country. And the irony of this is, we have 2 major internet backbones running through Hillsdale County, one private and one being the Michigan Merit Network for Education and Research, which Hillsdale College is connected to. How did that happen? Well, that's where we get into the culture and the combination of incompetence and malignance found in this community's governing bodies, particularly Hillsdale City Hall. That private backbone was supposed to bring fiber optic broadband internet to the city proper some 20 years ago now. The city council of that time, however, was so clueless and disorganized that they signed the franchise agreement without putting any sort of timeline or deadlines into that contract. So as a result, ACD, a company from Lansing, officially holds the fiber optic internet access monopoly in the city of Hillsdale, but has taken their sweet-ass time building it out because they have zero financial incentive to do so. They're not going to get fined for going past the deadline because there is no deadline. They are under no obligation to connect any part of the city at any time. They are simply adding fiber on utility poles where enough customers can be found to justify it, and that pretty much means just the college campus, through downtown, and down to the hospital, and that's it. In the meantime, Comcast finally brought gigabit cable internet to town about 15 years too late, and most people have opted for that. Not too long from now, that will not be enough bandwidth. We've shifted so much media consumption, communications, vital networking, and even emergency services to the internet that the demand for a bigger pipe is never going to stop growing. We're already well behind the curve here. But the trouble doesn't stop at infrastructure. Our entire approach to economic development is a failure beyond our infrastructural shortcomings. We had a government official, to tell you a story here, not too terribly long ago, who was tasked with giving a tour of our fine city to the CEO of a company who was considering building a new facility in Hillsdale's industrial park. Would have been a significant investment, brought quite a few jobs into the market, and would have at least made a small positive contribution to the city's otherwise hemorrhaging tax base. The CEO of this company happened to be a black gentleman, and that is important to this story, so take note of it. Now, despite many years of having only one or two decent options for dining out, I don't mind telling you that Hillsdale County has developed quite a nice set of locally owned and operated restaurants. The longtime institution known as Savarino's changed hands and has been known as Johnny T's for many years now, and it's Hillsdale County's original nice upper middle tier sit-down restaurant. There's also Olivia's Chop House in Jonesville, formerly the Chicago Water Grill, which serves up chops, steaks, and other dinner fare in a modern semi-formal setting. We have plenty of bars to choose from that serve bar and pub food, and damn good bar and pub food at that. So there was no shortage of choices for nice places where this official could have taken this CEO, who, again, is a black man, and that is important to this story. However, Brett Boyd had recently opened a crispy crunchy chicken franchise inside the Market House. It was a counter in a cafeteria setting inside a grocery store, sharing space with a Blimpie franchise at the opposite end of the same counter as the store's relocated deli. Guess where the businessman was taken for lunch? That's right, the fried chicken joint. A City of Hillsdale government official took a black CEO to a fried chicken counter in a cafeteria in a grocery store for lunch. Now, I personally know this government official, and I don't attribute their horrible, horrendous, incredibly idiotic gaffe to anything other than them being completely and utterly clueless. They thought that they were showing off how Hillsdale was growing, it wasn't, and how this new place had the community raving about how good it was. And to be fair, crispy crunchy chicken is the next best thing to Popeyes. I'll take it over K-Fry any day. But they took a black man to a fried chicken joint. Jesus Horatio Christ, how fucking stupid can you be? So that's the best example I can think of to give you of the incompetence at City Hall. Now, the ill intent starts with the long timeline that old-timers around here will give you, that the founders of the city never intended for it to get big. In other words, not only should we not grow beyond whatever arbitrary population size that these Luddites have decided is, and I quote, against the founders' intent, but we shouldn't have any modern city-type businesses or amenities at all. Now, first of all, this claim is entirely false, completely. There is absolutely nothing that you will find at the Mitchell Research Center in any early city laws or policies or any of the writings or collections of the earliest settlers of Hillsdale that would even remotely back up this idea. The founders of the city of Hillsdale were more concerned about stealing the seat of county government from Jonesville, convincing Hillsdale College to move down here from Spring Arbor, bringing the railroad to town, and growing a strong business and industrial base that would sustain their new community. If anything, they were pro-growth. So the founders' intent argument is a bald-faced lie. But secondly, even if that had been the founders' intent, who gives a shit? That was 1847. This is 2026. Are we going to join the Amish and all revert back to steel-wheeled horse buggies instead of cars too? The founders' intent doesn't matter at all. This is our time. This is our town now. We are not beholden to the whims of people who were dead before any of us were born. We have one set of standards to proceed by, ours. And those standards must reflect our values, our desires, our vision of the future, and our intentions for this community. And I apologize for the static that you're hearing, but that's my failing mixer. Future generations will have their own standards to progress by, but the key word there is progress. There won't be many future generations of Hillsdalians if we keep living in the past. The ill intent continues with the negative government officials who refuse to accept modern ways of thinking and changing public opinions. Case in point, marijuana possession, sales, and use is legal in Michigan, made so by popular vote. When we voted to legalize it, the voters of the city of Hillsdale were majority against it, which was stupid of those people, but there you have it nonetheless. I forgive them because the majority later came to their senses. Early after the vote, we had the opportunity to allow marijuana businesses to set up shop here, and the city council refused to pass the necessary ordinances. Their argument was that the city voted against legalization, and that was all the reason the council needed to block marijuana businesses from the city of Hillsdale. After some time, however, the people of Hillsdale saw how pot shops and grow operations were bringing in some very beneficial tax revenues, not only across the state, but in other communities right here in Hillsdale County. Public opinion shifted very quickly, and the majority were now just shy of demanding that the city council pass ordinances to allow marijuana businesses inside the city limits. In the midst of that outcry, there was a major grow operator who wanted to open a significantly sizable facility in the industrial park. They were raring to go, too. They were set on Hillsdale for this facility. This is where they wanted to be. Not only did the city council refuse to act, citing Reefer Madness era propaganda bullshit as the reason for most of the members' objections, but then Mayor Adam Stockford made it a point to stick to the line that the voters of Hillsdale were opposed to legalization, so they must still now be opposed to marijuana businesses in this city. Because apparently time and experience never change one's perspective, I guess. So when I say that this city has a long history of fucking it all up by intent or stupidity, I'm not just opining from a political perspective here. I'm talking about real-world events, real-world facts, and the negative outcomes of those events and facts that have defined the continued financial and population failures of the city of Hillsdale. Now, you might be saying, but Josh, what you're saying seems to contradict your position against Culver's coming to Hillsdale. No. Let me alleviate you of that misunderstanding. My objection to Culver's coming to Hillsdale has nothing to do with big city amenities or wanting Hillsdale to remain in the past. My objection has to do with the direction in which we're moving into the future. Let's go back to the Market House, which just closed its doors, presumably forever, at the end of last month. The Market House was an 85-year staple in this community. It started as a small butcher shop in a downtown location, gradually expanding into a full grocer in another location downtown, and later moving to its supermarket building north of the Carlton Road curve in the 1970s, where it still stands today. The mid-20th century radio jingle, parts of which continued to run on WCSR until the very end, was a full song that many of us lifelong or near-lifelong Hillsdalians will forever have burned into our brains. I even asked people to complete the first line of it as one of the membership qualification questions for the Facebook group Hillsdale's Hot Debates, though I don't actually require people to know it as long as they seem to be participating in good faith. Newcomers to the area won't have a clue what it is that I'm looking for, but they would have learned eventually had the Market House remained open. Now, until the Walmart location in Jonesville expanded into a supercenter in 2003, the Market House and Kroger were the only full-service grocery stores for some 30 miles in any direction, minus the other still-open Market House location in Hudson. So Walmart expanding into groceries locally was already taking away from the Market House's customer base. Walmart was less expensive and had the financial wherewithal to sell a wider variety of products and brands. That was when we all knew that the Market House was facing a rocky future. Save-A-Lot came to town for a while after the Supercenter conversion, and that was another thorn in Brett Boyd's side, but ultimately his strategy against them proved successful. They shut down after several years, and the Market House was still here. Then came Meijer. Now, for years and years and years, the Meijer Corporation had been averse to Hillsdale, and not without good reason. As I believe I made quite clear at the top, this is a very small market. We already had Kroger as a national chain and the Market House as a local independent store. Later, we had the Walmart Supercenter, which actually copied the Meijer format. Meijer pioneered the hypermarket format in 1962 under the Thrifty Acres name. The Waltons didn't open their first hypermarket formatted Walmart until 1988. So if Walmart was already filling the hypermarket void in Hillsdale County, beating Meijer to their own game in their own home state, on top of longstanding competition between Kroger and Market House, then what incentive was there for Meijer to come here? None. Until suddenly there was. See, over the years, Brett Boyd came to the conclusion that his best bet was to provide things inside the Market House that wouldn't have been sustainable as standalone businesses outside the framework of something larger. For example, Subway locations inside Walmart or the food courts inside Target, which later came to include Starbucks franchises. The Market House already had a satellite location of the local independent Nash Drugs pharmacy, but most grocery stores have pharmacies nowadays anyway. He needed something big and splashy. Thus began the largest set of renovations that were ever undertaken at the Market House. Big B Coffee and Anytime Fitness, enter stage left. You two are standing where Nash Drugs used to be. Enter Domino's Pizza, stage right on the cafeteria set. Cafeteria set, stage right, enter Blimpie, enter Crispy Crunchy Chicken. Nash Drugs, you are now stage front. Deli department, move from backstage to the stage right cafeteria set, and you're now wearing a boar's head costume. Salad bar, hot lunch bar, prepackaged meals, new head chef. I need you all at the cafeteria set. Let's move, people. It was a big gamble, but for the most part it worked out. Nash Drugs eventually closed for their own reasons, replaced by a shop-by-phone pickup window. The chef eventually left and hot meal packages fell by the wayside, but the subs, chicken, and pizza continued to do well enough. The coffee shop and the gym were the two strongest parts of the business, as evidenced by the fact that they're still open today. It was when the Domino's franchisee learned that corporate was ending their contract in favor of opening a company-owned location in Walmart that things really took a turn for the worse. Now, I was working alongside Brett Boyd at the time. He was an advertiser on a local media outlet that I was working for. I'm not giving away any privileged information when I tell you that he knew he had a tough choice to make about what to do with the Domino's space. Did he fill it with some other kind of quick service restaurant? Did he tear it out and open it up for some other grocery department? Did he do something completely different altogether with it? He had his ideas. Many people had various ideas of their own that they shared with him, and it was a decision that he had to make to stay on top of his strategy to keep people coming into the store whether they needed groceries or not. The route he chose to go in was to open Sharon's House of Pancakes. There are a couple of very major problems with this. One, we are utterly spoiled for breakfast joints around here. We have the longtime staples of the Finish Line just around the curve to the south, and Lola Lou's Coffee Cup Diner in downtown. Downtown newcomer The Local Eatery had opened not too long before, and it had already established a customer base of its own. Local institution Spangler's Family Restaurant has been serving spectacular breakfasts for decades in Jonesville, and they even have a secondary seasonal location at the Hillsdale County Fairgrounds. Breakfast was already more than covered in Hillsdale County. 2, who wants to eat breakfast inside a grocery store? Sure, the quote-unquote restaurant was sectioned off with false walls on the sides and in back of the seating area, but you were still eating a diner breakfast inside a grocery store. It was weird. Before you jump all over me for that, yes, I know that certain restaurants inside certain grocery stores can work. My favorite example comes from my childhood in Miami. We had a local Italian specialty grocer called Lorenzo's, and oh my God, the wonderful smell that would hit you in the face when you opened that door. And right in the center of the building was a little Italian cafe where you could sit down, have a cappuccino and some light eats, and talk with friends, family, and other locals until your heart's content. Never at any time when I was in that store did I ever see the cafe empty. It was the heart and soul of that business. However, that's a themed cafe inside a specialty store. It catered specifically to people who love Italian food and culture, of which there were many in that area at that time. As the years went by, demographics shifted. That area is now known as Miami's Chinatown. Lorenzo's clientele dwindled, and they sadly closed some time ago. However, that neighborhood now has great Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and other East Asian restaurants and grocers that I'm sure carry the spirit of Lorenzo's on for another time and another group of people. What it was not is a pancake house inside a general-purpose supermarket. Not long after, Boyd decided to section off another area next to the Pancake House seating area and opened up Underdog's Sports Bar. There were a couple of very major problems with this as well. One, again, we already have a number of highly popular bars and pubs in the area. Just in the urban core alone, we have the Hunt Club downtown, Here's to You Pub and Grub downtown, whatever the former Broad Street Market is called this week, also downtown. Hillsdale Brewing Company downtown. That one's located in a former brothel, which is a fun little bit of local color. Johnny T's has a liquor license. Olivia's has a liquor license. El Cerrito's serves if you're feeling like some Mexican food. If you want to get drunk and watch sports, there are already plenty of places to do that in Hillsdale or Jonesville, let alone the rest of Hillsdale County. 2, surprisingly, is not that it was a bar located inside a grocery store. That's not a big deal. We have stores that do sip and shops all across Michigan. No, the second problem was one of the offerings. Firstly, With a name like Underdogs, you might expect it focused on hot dogs in the same way that Buffalo Wild Wings focuses on chicken wings, right? Wrong. Instead, Boyd hired a new head chef to put together a menu of semi-dinnerish dishes that weren't exactly dinner and weren't exactly bar food either, which, okay, yeah, I get it. Instead of going for the typical bar food or dinner food that you could get anywhere else, come in and stop for a drink and something unique while catching the game at Underdogs. But bar food is bar food for a reason. It goes well with drinks, sports, and a group of good people. It's what everyone else does because after an entire human history of drinking alcohol in crowds and watching athletes beat up on each other, we've learned that rather definitively that these are the foods that go best with that activity. Additionally, what was on offer was rather expensive for bar fare. Even people who tried to make a go of it have told me that they found it pricey. So you've got a sports bar with a name that suggests a food that you don't serve, which doesn't serve bar food and is overpriced, sitting in the middle of a grocery store. This, too, was destined to fail. On top of all of this, the one thing the Market House had been known for, its meat department, entirely fell apart. The butcher that had been the magic worker for several years left, and the store never really recovered from that loss. The Boar's Head brand went away eventually too. So as the two major grocery draws had collapsed and the actual grocery part of the business shrank to make room for everything else, there was just nothing left to shop there for. The selection suffered, the sizes shrank, the quality dropped, and the customer service became lackluster as Boyd's focus was more on finding inexpensive foods for quick shopping trips than rebuilding the store into what it once was. In the end, Brett Boyd's dedication to making it work was the store's downfall, and it wasn't because he wanted it to move forward, it was because the way in which he tried to move forward. And I say all this because I know Brett Boyd. I've worked both with and for Brett Boyd. I like Brett Boyd. He's been a pillar of this community, a tireless proponent of local business, and a supporter of local causes that have brought us all joy and happiness, like the Great American Celebration fireworks on the 4th of July. I don't say any of this to attack or belittle him. I say it simply to point out that you can be more than willing to go the distance, but choose the wrong direction to go it in. And that's my problem with Culver's coming to Hillsdale, and the new KFC, and the Dairy Queen, and even the Aldi. Because we had better chicken than KFC at Crispy Crunchy Chicken. We have better ice cream and grilled foods than Dairy Queen at the other side. The one hope that the Market House had left, in my opinion, was to adopt the Aldi model, but once Aldi announced their intent to open here, that went out the window too. It's not that I object to progress or bigger city amenities. I want those things too. But we've had those options. We've had those opportunities. We have repeatedly either ignored them or outright rejected them. I have nothing against Culver's at all. I've eaten there several times. Despite my personal opinion that it's mediocre food overall, there are plenty of people who love it, and I hold no grudge against them for that. The problem is that it's just another chain restaurant that you can find in any other city across the country. It's not unique. It's not an attraction for non-locals. It's not something that we can really take pride in when we say, yes, we have this in Hillsdale. It's just Culver's. And on top of that, it's going to create completely unnecessary competition for existing mom-and-pop restaurants. Even now, I'm still seeing people in the Daily News' social media comments saying, I wish we had a steakhouse. Hey, newsflash, geniuses, we already have Johnny T's and Olivia's. You aren't going to the steakhouses we already have. Now you want some cookie-cutter national chain to come in and make things even harder for the local owners who live and work in our community? You'd rather give your money to a nameless, faceless corporation who doesn't give a shit about us beyond making that money, and if worse comes to worse, they'll just fire everyone and close the doors with no concern for the employees or anyone who relied on them? That's what you want for Hillsdale County? Look, I'm a free market guy. We vote with our dollars and may the best business win, but y'all aren't even voting with your dollars for the best businesses. You're voting for the cheap, meaningless shit. So go right ahead. Enjoy your butter burgers and deep fried cheese curds. But when all the finish lines and the saucy dogs and the Johnny T's and the other sides shut down forever, and you're suddenly missing that 3 of everything, or that brisket wrap, or that shrimp fettuccine, or that bumpy cake in a waffle cone, don't come crying to me, because I'm just going to laugh in your face and say, I told you so. Because if this is what Hillsdale County wants to become, then we're going to get exactly what we deserve. A bland, meaningless existence.